Hi everyone, it's Neil von Hoopt here. I'm the Programs Manager at the Australian Institute of Training and Development, and I would like to welcome you to the 2018 AITD webinar series. Over on the right hand side of your screen, I'm going to introduce you shortly to Lucy, but just while people are still joining us, a few things about today's webinar. So first off, a big shout out to, hang on, and looks like I've got to click through all of my slides at the moment. Gianna, I don't know if you can make my slides work. There we go, perfect. So that's actually a really good segue there, because the first thing I wanted to do was give a big shout out to Redback Conferencing. And they're kind of, I've written down that they're kind of like the proverbial paddling ducks. We get a seamless webinar experience, but they're in the background paddling furiously under the water to make it all happen. And what can I say? I do like ducks, and I really do like Redback. They're great people to work with. AITD webinars aren't just kind of a sit back and enjoy the ride experience. They're actually an invitation to interact with us and to engage, and it's good to see the chat box kind of firing up on the side there. Lucy is currently kind of watching that chat box, so you'll see her interacting with you down there, and she will be back again in the chat box at the end of the webinar time there. So if you read your reminder email, and you happen to actually prepare a question for Lucy, now's the time to kind of pop it in there so that she can have it in mind as she talks and perhaps address it on the way through. And if it hasn't been addressed on the way through, you can come back to her in the chat room at the end. So if you actually prepared a question around this whole idea of how to have a cracking career or around kind of career development stuff, pop it into the chat room now, and so Lucy can see it before she gets started. When she gets started, I'll swap into the chat box and I'll be interacting in there with everybody. Now, if you're on Twitter, down on the bottom left-hand side of the slide there, you can see the handle for AITD and the hashtag for our webinar series. And Joe, our amazing comms manager, will be live tweeting during the webinar. So if you want to have Twitter open at the side, you can also engage out there on Twitter. If you're having trouble hearing, you can actually dial in. And that works really well because I've actually dialed in and you're listening to me through that dial-in system, as is Lucy. So if you are having trouble hearing, then use those numbers. And if you need the numbers, again, they are in the reminder email that you got sent this morning. I am stoked to have Lucy with us today. I actually first met her at a fundraising conference about 4 or 5 years ago, and I've followed her online ever since, through a couple of different organisations. She is, as far as I know, the only Australian in the world's top 30 social CEOs list. She's this highly sought after keynote speaker, travels the world, and she's amazing, and I'm so stoked to have her here today. She's in a name transition, you may have noticed, from Lucy Herring, that I knew, to Lucy Bloom. And having done a name change myself, I'm entirely sympathetic with that process. So I've agreed that for this webinar, I'll just be referring to her as Your Majesty. So, Your Majesty, Lucy, welcome, and thanks for joining us. It's over to you. I'll be in the chat room, and I'll be back on again when you're finished. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and yeah, thanks for signing in today to listen to this webinar. It's going to be fast and serious. I'm going to speak at quite a pace so that I can cram in as much as I can for you in this next 40 minutes, and then I'll come back and review your questions and we'll answer those as well. So let me give you a little intro to who I am, and I guess the career I've had and how I happen to be the one sitting in this seat telling you all about it. Neil mentioned I'm going through a name change. Honestly, you can just call me whatever you like right now. I'm Lucy Perry on my passport, I'm Lucy Bloom on my business card, and it'll probably take the next year or 6 months to get my name clear. So it'll be Lucy Bloom in the future, and you can find me on the internet under the Lucy Bloom. My story, look, if it can't be an inspiration, at least it can be a horrible warning. That my career hasn't always been perfect, but it's always been very interesting. It's never been boring. So I think there's a lot to learn from some of my face plants and some of my great successes too, and I'm going to share some of that with you today. Let me give you a little snapshot, a little summary of my career trajectory over the last 25 years. When I first left school, I could not go to university straight away. And when I'm Prime Minister, everyone will take a year off between school and university to go and do fun stuff. And to work in primary industry, there are not enough people to work in primary industry to pick grapes and dig holes and herd cattle. And so that's what I went to do. I worked really hard at school and I just needed a nice big break to do something purely for fun. That was not a career move at all. I didn't have a long-term plan to work in primary industry or to work on the land or to work in the country. I just wanted to have fun. I was 18 and that's exactly what I did, and it was the best fun. And believe it or not, it's been a great life skill to be able to ride a horse really well, and I had so much fun in that year. Then I came back to Sydney and again I just couldn't knuckle down and study. And so I was really lucky to pick up a fabulous junior creative role in an advertising agency in Sydney. And at the time that agency focused on charities, and I never realised that just picking up that little job, my boss said to me, Lucy, you got the job because you can type fast and you can talk fast. And I just landed in that job with zero skills. I could type, that was it. And I was so lucky to get that job, but it did set me on that path in working for not-for-profits and working in the communication side of charity work, and worked on some really big accounts like World Vision, Amnesty International, Salvation Army, and some of the things I learnt back then when I was 18 and 19, I still use those rules of thumb today with some of the clients that I work with. So it really set me off into that world of communication for not-for-profits and charities. And then I was having the time of my life in that role, and I was living in an apartment with a friend, and I rode a motorcycle to work, and I thought I was just the coolest thing on legs. And then I had a massive motorcycle accident, and this completely changed the direction of my life. It was on the approach to Sydney Harbour Bridge. I had this massive prang, and for the next year I was in and out of hospital. I had 14 reconstructive operations to save my leg. And that changed everything. It meant that the career that I thought I'd have in advertising had to have a big, solid rethink, because I had this limb that needed looking after for a long time. I was in plaster for a year, a week and a day, which is a long, long time to have nothing to do. And this was pre-internet. This is before the internet existed. And so I think I nearly died of boredom more than the injuries that I suffered in that motorcycle accident. It was so boring. I was stuck in hospital, no internet. I just watched the cricket and Oprah, and that was it for a year. It was the tip. But in that time, I developed by accident a skill that I still use today, and that is instead of, it's an emphasis on fantasizing about what can go right rather than freaking out and getting anxious about what can go wrong. And I used that in that year, because if I thought about how bad things could go, I was going to lose my leg, and also I could have easily died as a result of those accidents, those injuries. Instead, I just focused on what could go right and the dreams I had for my future once my leg was better. And one of those dreams was to set up my own advertising agency, because, you know, I had 8 months experience, so I had plenty of experience to just go, go, go. And that was one of the dreams I had that I actually did do. So when I was finally better, I still had a very unhappy leg for a few years. So when I was finally able to work again, I set up my own ad agency, and I needed the flexibility. So that's something I've learned in my career, is to be able to pivot and have the flexibility and change my mind. If I really, really was desperate to work in the ad industry, it was going to have to be on my own terms, running my own show, so I could look after my little limbs. And that's what I did. And I started out as a freelancer, so it's just me on my own, and I picked up some juicy clients. And over the years ahead, I built that up into, it was about $1 million turnover, and I had a key staff of 4. And that was a really great way to build a career as a creative, to have a great income, and also to be able to have a family. I got married when I was 21, and I ran that business for 20 years, and it gave me enormous flexibility, so that I could have kids in those years. I've got 3 children who are now 10, 12 and 14. I could do that because I was running my own show, running my own business, and had the flexibility to have my breeding years, I call them. So that was a terrible accident. I had to pivot, change, and do something different in a different format, but it worked really, really well for me. So one of my problems is I get bored easily, and I ran that business for 20 years. So there was a big hunk of that where I was towards the last 5, 7, 8, even 10 years, the second half of running that business, I was bored with the client mix. And so I was always looking for something else, interesting clients to run after, fabulous side projects to do. The boring clients can be really, really profitable, so I couldn't ignore them, but I was always looking for interesting things to do. And that's when I set up the world's first childbirth education program, which is written specifically for men. So I realised that there was this little gap in the market when I was having my babies, that men were being left out of the conversation when it came to having a baby. And so I created the program for them, and then I franchised it nationally, and I sold that business a few years later, and I published the book that came out of it. So those little side projects were fascinating. They didn't earn a lot of money, but I learned enormous skills. The book went on to make good money, which was a continual spinner, because people keep having babies, so they keep buying my book, which is fabulous. So these were distractions that built my skill set, kept me far more entertained than if I was just focusing on my design and creative clients. Then I took a big leap, and I took a big step from running my ad agency to being the CEO of a major charity. And that was an amazing opportunity, and I was ready for the opportunity when it came. But I had picked up the client, which was a network of hospitals and a midwifery school in Ethiopia. And I picked up that client as a pro bono client. And for 8 years I've been travelling to Ethiopia. Every year I'd do a huge photo shoot. And I got to know the work in Africa really well and the founder well. And then when it came time for them to hire a CEO of a brand new entity in Australia, they chose me. So I was given this amazing opportunity to step from volunteer to CEO in one step. And that was an amazing job. I loved it. I have to say, so far, it's my favourite job I've had my whole career, because I used all my skills, every single bit, the publishing I've done, all the creative work, all the communication, every single aspect of my career to date was put to full throttle use in that role. But then I was also out learning super fast, because once you're a CEO, you're reporting to a board of directors, and I had to learn an enormous amount about the charity sector and reporting to a board of directors. It was an amazing job. I loved it. So glad I took that risk, took that leap. Then I was headhunted to head up another charity, and this time it was in Cambodia. And that was a whole different set of challenges. It was child protection, so it began as an orphanage, and that's a really tricky ground to communicate. I only stuck to that role for 13 months. I found the change management that was required in that role that didn't suit my creative side. Fun and creativity is my absolute goal in life, and fixing up systems, while they're incredibly necessary, was just really boring for me to work on. So I was there for 13 months, learned a huge amount, fixed it all up, put it all neat and tidy under the hood, and then I moved on again. Then I really started to focus on my speaking career. So as a CEO, I was often invited to speak at events, and for the first year I said yes to every single request to speak, no matter what, and I did it for free while I honed my public speaking and presentation skills. And then after that I could charge for speaking. So this year I'm focusing on that work. Last year I did another contract where I was running a business that supports female entrepreneurs. Again, it was fixing things up under the hood, but a lot of creative work too. But that job showed me that I am not suited to being chained to the desk 10 hours a day. That was blatantly clear to me that I was not a happy person chained to a desk. I'm much happier on stages, behind lecterns, talking to big groups of people, small groups of people, being able to share my learnings and the learnings of the other people that I've worked with in my career. So that's where I'm most happy. And I'm working on 2 books this year, the second edition of my first book and a new book called Get the Girls Out, which is basically a memoir that's been published through HarperCollins. So that's my career in a nutshell. 25 years, fast and furious. This year is probably the first time since I left school that I've actually slowed down a bit and not worked absolutely hell for leather, and I'm really enjoying being able to do that. So I'm going to share with you the four F's that I think are fab factors to consider in your career. They work for me, they work with people I've worked for, worked with, and people who've worked for me. And these I think are some absolute keys that I want you to take away with you today. Number one is fit. And by fit, I mean your fit as a professional, as a talented professional. Where do you fit? And being absolutely focused. Thank you, whoever progressed my slide. I need a slide progressor because I'm going to keep talking. By fit, I mean your fit as a professional and your absolute focus on the consistency of that fit. And when you do that, and when you do it consistently over years, even if you pivot and change, stay consistent once you've decided, stay focused. Then your branding, your personal brand and what you are known for is working for you in your sleep. So that when people are looking for that person to run that event, or that person to teach that guitar, that person to develop this whole education program, they know that you are the fit for that need, and then you're not flogging yourself to market yourself as the person for that fit, because everybody knows that you're the right fit for that particular niche. So it takes great consistency and focus, and this is across everything. So you might be an employee somewhere, but you still need fit and branding focus for yourself and what your areas of expertise are. And this can be across your website, your business card. It should be across your all your personal social media. So I have about 1,000 Facebook friends on my personal page. Every single one of them knows what I do best. Those 1,000 people know that if they need a really good speaker who's fast and entertaining and can apply learning to whatever work environment, they know I'm the person to ask. And that work is being done for me in my sleep. Once you're in that place where people know you for what you're really fantastic at, and you're not shy about it, and you're clear that's what you're good at, then the headhunters come looking for you. And it's not always headhunters, it's the people who are commissioning work or signing off contracts. Those people come looking for you once you know really well, once you know really well for that. And that fit is really important. Grab it, take it, and be really consistent with everything to do with that fit that you are really good at. I'll give you some really great examples. There's a chick called Kate Toon, and she is a search engine optimization expert, and she doesn't do it for you. She trains people on how to do SEO really well themselves. And she's got such a name for it, and maybe it's because her surname Toon is kind of cute, like cartoon, Kate Toon. She is so well known for it. When I haven't even done her courses, and when someone says, where do I go, where do I start with SEO or search engine optimization, bam, there'll be 10 people who will say, Kate Toon is the person for you. And I just noticed in the last 24 hours, for the first time in her career, her online training platform is completely booked out, and it was booked out within 24 hours. The fit is working, and it's working for her in her sleep. Some of you might remember Dr. Karl, who is on the ABC and on Triple J, and he, Dr. Karl is known for being a science expert. He's the go-to for making science into something that's consumable and easy to understand. Anyone needs a comment on how to make the science explainable. Everybody knows you can go to Dr. Karl, and you know where to find him because you can find him through the ABC. There are countless examples of these of people I know like her. There's a chick called Melinda Hurd. She's a photographer, and she's really well known for shooting headshots of corporate women who are in their 40s and older. That's just become her niche, and she's really focused on it. So I know next time I need my headshots, I'm going to Melinda, because every time I see her posting her work, she shoots women who are older, and she just makes them look hot, totally hot. And she's got that reputation, and she just focuses on just that. For a little while there, she did some drone work, and that took her away from her main focus. And she said it actually did not support her business well, because it took her away from the focus of shooting really great headshots for older women. And she focused back on doing headshots. Melinda Hird, H-I-R-D, Melinda Hird Photography. These examples are everywhere you look. You know, when I was living in the Burbs, I live by the beach now, but when I was living in the Burbs, we had a Tupperware chick. I don't even know what her name was. She was just a Tupperware chick. And anyone in our suburb knew where they could get their Tupperware from. So much so she drove around in a pink Tupperware car that was completely funded by her split. It was working for her in her sleep. But you have to be willing to talk about this stuff. You can't keep this stuff a secret. You have to voice what you're good at. You have to be clear about it across all your social networks and in conversations, so people know exactly what your fit is. And I have a good example of this. I have a friend who he has a bunch of 70 friends, and they all surf together. And they're all men in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, and they've surfed together for 20 years. And I noticed that a friend of mine didn't ever do business with this group of 70 men. And I said to him, why don't you work with them? This friend of mine is a clinical biopsychologist and a dream therapist. It starts with people's dreams as a starting point for unearthing their difficulties and working with them as a counsellor. He worked with these 70 men who all had problems, I'm sure of it. And none of them knew that that's what he did for a living. And I said, how come none of them know that that's what you do? He said, we just talk about surf. I said, I think we should change that. I actually think we should voice your fit so that all those men know what you do and what you do incredibly well. And he did exactly that. He started talking about his dream therapy. He did a blog and started posting his blog on his Facebook page. And now he consults mainly to their partners, so sometimes to the men in his surfing group, but often to their partners, their wives, their girlfriends, just because he voices fit, which I think is great. On from fit, there are so many great examples of that, and I will come back and answer some of your questions. So on to fluke. I'm just going to keep ploughing on because it's hard for me to read your conversation. So I'm going to plough on and then we'll come back and talk about the questions that you have. So fluke. I think fluke is a really gorgeous thing to embrace, and that if you are ready to take hold of a fluke and take advantage of something that just literally lands in your lap, you have to be ready to take advantage of it. So when I was given my first paying speaker's gig and I was asked to fly to Fiji and give a 1-hour keynote to a room full of executives, I was ready for that fluke. It just walked in the door. They wanted to pay me. They put me on a plane full of all those executives and paid all my travel, gave me a few more days in Fiji, and I gave it my first big, huge paid speech. But I was so prepared to catch that fluke because I had been saying yes to hundreds of speeches before that to really prepare myself and be ready to charge. And from then on, and I've done lots in Australia where I was paid to do what I was just ready to take. So be ready for that. Take advantage of an opportunity by being ready. I know that I can speak at short notice too, and it happens to me all the time because I'm known for speaking. I go to an event and I'm asked 3 minutes before things sort of get rolling. Oh, would you mind giving a speech for 5 minutes? Would you mind opening the show? Or would you mind giving a speech? Could you introduce, our keynote? So I'm often asked to do that, and I can actually jump in and give that speech because I'm actually prepared, and I can do that on the fly. So be prepared to be able to catch those flukes. I'm also really careful. Every single speech I give, I treat a small audience just like a big one. There's 20 little ladies in a Seroptimus meeting in Queensland. I put as much preparation and effort in, as I do to giving a speech to 1,000 people, because you never know who's in that audience. Same goes when you're being interviewed. You actually are never clear exactly who's reviewed your application. You never know who's in an audience, and to treat them like that, this is the last round interview, I think is good advice. So once I gave a speech on the Gold Coast, and it was a small group of ladies, and I threw my absolute all into that speech. And then the very next day, I gave a similar speech but tweaked to the audience, and that was 1,000 doctors was in that audience. I gave just as much heart and energy to those two audiences. But out of those two audiences, it was a little group of 20 women that unearthed a donor who gave $1 million to the charity in Ethiopia. Not the huge flashy audience, but that little audience. And it ticked along, and it took months from that first initial speech to actually sealing the deal on the largest personal donation that had ever been given to the organisation. And that, I honestly think it began because I treated that audience as just as special as my big audiences. So you pick up what might seem like flukes, but you're actually really, really prepared to collect them. I also think that part of fluke is taking on risk. And I'm often asked about risk-taking, that some people see that I might be considered a risk-taking type of person. And I think maybe my hair has misled them into thinking I'm more of a risk-taker than I really am. But every risk I've ever taken, I use what I like to call my Lucy Perry, or it'll now be the Lucy Bloom risk management framework. And that has two questions. So when you're looking at a difficult risk, and I'm not talking about jumping out of aeroplanes here into war zones, these are corporate risks, these are your career risks. Two questions. What is the worst thing that could happen? That's your number one question to ask. If you apply for that job, what is the worst thing that could happen? You wouldn't get it. So it's actually worth applying. It's the worst thing that could happen. You could waste some time and you could practice your interview technique. That's probably the worst thing that can happen if you fail to get a job that you might think is beyond you. And a lot of people won't go for jobs that they don't feel qualified to do. But I tell you what, my first CEO role, I wasn't qualified in the slightest. In my second CEO role, hardly more qualified than my first. So go for those roles. But what's the worst thing you can do is not get the job. But there's lots of examples of that. When I published my first book, I decided to self-publish it. No one wanted to publish it. It was too much of a niche title because it was for men and it was for men and their role in childbirth. So it's very much a niche title. So I decided to publish it myself. So what was the worst thing that could happen was that I blowed 20 grand on printing this book. That was a lot of money. I've never spent that much money in one go in my whole life. 20 grand on the print production and the PR and the design and getting this book completely ready for press. I could blow all that money and I could sell not one book, and I could drive into my garage and look at 100 cartons of books staring back at me every single time, humiliating me every time I drove into my garage. And I think that wasn't too bad a risk. But if that's the worst thing that can happen, is the books look back at me and remind me that I'm a bit of a bitch, that's not too bad. So ask that question, what is the worst thing that could happen? And often I hear from people that the worst thing, the thing that they're trying to avoid the most is the word no. They just don't want to hear no. And I've discovered that no is not a terminal condition, that no can be no for now. So ask, and if the answer is no, yeah, it's okay. It's just no. And then come back at it. I've had no's, and then I've come back at it in a different flavour or at a different time, or ask differently. I once asked it when I was CEO of the Cambodian charity. I asked it, one of the best speakers in Australia, if he would give me I think I asked him for 4 speeches. Would he give me 4 speeches as a donation to the charity? And he said no. I got a no. So I thought on it some more and I went back to it in a different way. I didn't text him. I think I emailed him the first time. I didn't email him. I asked him out for coffee. Next time you're in Sydney, let me buy you a caffeinated beverage. And I went and I saw him and I sat opposite him. And I said, how about one speech? How about you give me one speech in your favourite city that you kill the most time? Because you're travelling all the time. And he said, yes, straight away. So I had to come at it just at a different angle, at a different time. I asked him 6 months later. So no is not terminal. It's just no. Sometimes it can be humiliating. So what? I think that the risk in trying and asking far outweighs the potential of a no. I also think it's good to push on risks a little and push, it's a bit of a cliche, but pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. I prefer to use the term testing your nerves. So if you want these flukes to land in your lap and for you to be ready for them, you have to test your nerve a little and try some things you've never tried before. And I've certainly seen this happen in teams that have worked for me. I remember once I was hiring someone, interviewing her, and she said to me, in her interview, she's 27 years old, I still remember, it was her first job out of university, and she said, I'm not a computer person. And I'm here to tell you that that is not a good thing to say in an interview ever. Even if you are a grave digger, don't admit that you are not a computer person. Everyone needs to be a computer person in 2018. So she said that to me, I'm not a computer person. And she almost didn't get the job because of that admission, because we were a tiny team and everyone needed to be a computer person. In the end, she did get the job for other reasons. She had other skills. All right, she got the job. And so I decided to put her in charge of IT. Because if she's not a computer person and she struggles with that stuff, then she's the one that needs to be able to communicate it in a way that the rest of the team can handle it, and she needs to upskill fast. So not only did I put her in charge of IT, I actually put her in charge of a project where she was overseeing the development of an app. So it was the API that linked two platforms, two software platforms, and she had to work with developers and develop the API that linked the two and made those two software platforms work. It worked so well that both platforms bought the API that linked the two, and it was really successful. So this is I'm not a computer person, who was then developing apps and leading a team of offshore developers. After that, I remember overhearing her say to somebody else, not me, she wouldn't admit it to me, I overheard her saying to someone, I'm not much of a runner. And at the time, I remember thinking, and then I put her in charge of the team that went to Ethiopia to run against Ethiopians. And she had the time of her life. So I really do believe in testing your nerves, pushing people beyond where they really like to be. But that comfort zone is a really, really boring place to be. And all it takes is a bit of courage. Honestly, you just feel dumb for a little while, and you're just pedaling a little bit faster than everyone else who's just 3 steps behind you. And honestly, just about answers to all those things, everything that chick did, other than having to train to run in Ethiopia. You can find it all on the internet. So fluke. Make the most of flukes by being prepared for them. Then I want to talk a little bit about failure. I'm not going to talk too much about failure because I don't like the glorification of failure, to be honest. People talk about failing. Failing's a wonderful thing. I think failing sucks. And I think people say that it doesn't suck because they failed, so you've got to look on the bright side, and I get that. So look on the bright side when things fail, and what did you learn from the failure? I think that's crucial. I remember making print mistakes in my design business and sending whole brochures to press, and there being an error in the print run, and we were paying for the reprint, and I remember it cost $6,000 one time. And I remember thinking, well, that's a $6,000 investment in learning that particular, it wasn't a typo, it was actually a print production oversight on my part. I could have gone to a conference for a week, but I've learned it in one painful day. So what do you learn? What can you learn from those failures? Otherwise, they're absolutely pointless. And something to learn from my friend Layne Beachley, and this is about never giving up. Sometimes people see failure as not so much trying and failing, but just never getting there, just never pulling off that goal that they're desperately aiming for. And Layne once told me that she almost gave up right before she won her first world title as a world champion surfer. She almost gave up literally weeks before that first title. And she went on to win 7 world titles. The best female surfer in the world. And I always think of that. When I've got a big goal and it's just staying a little bit out of my reach, I want to crack the US market. I want to speak in America. Apparently, our accent goes down very well in America. I want to crack that market, and it's just staying just out of my reach. So every time I'm working on that more and more, I think of Layne and not giving up right before her 7 world titles. Keep that in mind rather than glamorizing failure. And I've only got a few minutes to go, 5 or so minutes, and I want to spend the rest of my time with you on fun. And I think that is just the most important ingredient for your career and for life. And I would have loved to spend 40 whole minutes on fun because I think it's so crucial. I think it's your #1 success factor. If you are having fun, you'll continue at the work you're doing. If your team working for you are having a ball, you'll have much lower turnover in the teams that work for you. Your students, if you can make your classes fun, your students will love you and keep coming back for more. Fun is crucial, and you know why? Because when people are having fun, when they're literally smiling and laughing, and they're having fun in their bodies, they produce endorphins, which are a painkiller. They're an opiate, and they make you feel good. They make you feel good, and they numb the pain. So if you can make Monday morning meetings fun, they are a whole lot less painful. Exercise and laughter produce endorphins. And believe it or not, I was reading some research this week that if you smile, you start to produce endorphins. You don't even need to mean it. You can just smile, but you don't actually have to be having a good time. So if you can just plaster on a smile on the bus, on the way in on a cold, rainy Monday morning, you will actually start to feel better. I think it's important to celebrate success. That's half the fun and work. Celebrating success at every meaningful stage. I've worked in teams where we're celebrating really little, like tiny steps. It's like, come on, we've got to really celebrate the big stuff. I had this guy called Alex, who was my CFO, and I still miss him. He's so awesome. He's my absolute antidote to me. I'd go, yeah, let's do this, and Alex would go, oh, are we into it? So he was this perfect balance to me, this guy Alex. And he said, just in passing, oh, Lucy, we've just cracked the $6 million mark in our fundraisers. I went, are you kidding me? We should have been aiming for that like mad. We should have had big, like one of those big tickers in the office and make a big fuss when we reach that goal. I said, Alex, when we reach the $7 million, I'm going to have like a thing above your desk full of balloons. I'm going to pull a chain. It's going to release the balloons and the glitter. There's going to be dancing girls, Alex. You know what he said? He said, well, I'll do it on a Tuesday because the cleaners come on a Wednesday. So Alex wasn't really big on celebrating success, but I was, and the whole team is, and it's really, really important to celebrate those successes and have a lot of fun. Convert the mundane. Lots of our jobs can be really boring. In my role as a CEO, one of the most boring, there's two super duper boring things that come to mind. One is collecting receipts and having to reconcile them against your credit card. It is just the most mind-numbingly boring task to do. And so I quickly handed it on to someone else in my team to do, but I thought that's a bit cool because then I'm just giving her a boring job. And so I would, every time I sent her a receipt, I would take a selfie or that receipt in a really funny place just to entertain my team member. And then she would print them all, and we'd get this ridiculous pile of receipts with pictures of taxi drivers and anything to make the mundane fun. Because if it's fun, you're having fabulous hormones rushing through your body, everything feels good, everyone has a better time, and you will succeed. I've always led with fun, and I've worked in teams where the leadership leads with fear, and it doesn't work. The turnover of staff is really high, and people don't achieve because they love it, they achieve because they're scared, and they never achieve as high as they could. So really focus on fun and not fear. I think that also means taking it when you're a leader, it means not taking yourself too seriously and really finding fun at what you do. So that's my 4 things I really wanted to share with you. Fit, focus on you as a brand and really be consistent. See how I've got pink hair? See how my slide is pink? Everything's pink. Be as consistent as possible so you're recognisable, people know exactly where to go to, and your brand is working for you in your sleep. Sleep, make the most of those fabulous, what look like sleeps as opportunities by being ready for them. Be absolutely ready for those amazing opportunities. Embrace risk, have a go, push your nerve, like test your nerve, and consider risk. I realised I didn't tell you what the second question was in my risk management framework. The first one is, what's the worst thing that can happen? The second question is, will anybody die? And that usually brings things back down to earth. This is not the end of the world. No one's going to die unless you're a surgeon. But so ask those 2 questions. Keep things down to earth. No one's going to die if you publish a book or you apply for that job, or just go for it. Embrace failure, but embrace it fast and focus on your goal, and don't give up. Think of Layne Beachley and those 7 world records. And most of all, if it's the only thing you think you remember about today's webinar, is fun. Pump fun into your career, into your home life, into your commute, into the most boring meetings of the day, and have fun. That's the most important thing. So that's me. I think we'll go to questions now.
Perfect. Thank you, Lucy. So Lucy's still talking, and I'm back here now, and Lucy's going to jump into the chat box at the side there. So if you have any questions coming out of that, then go straight into the chat box, and Lucy will be in there. She's still going to be smiling on the side of the screen there, but she will be there in the chat box. Now, it's so good to hear from you, Lucy. And as I mentioned in the emails beforehand, our audience spend their days looking after everybody else's development, and they can neglect their own. And so it's so good to have some input for them, and that's kind of what AITD is about. We've got a few things coming up just whilst we're in the chat room there at the side. I'll tell you them just as we wrap up here. Our next webinar is actually only in a couple of weeks' time, and we've got Helen Blunden. Helen is great. She's, I thought of this the other day, she's well connected. She's got like a super strong social network, but she also connects well. So whenever I speak to her, either online or in person or on the phone, wherever that, she connects well. So she's the perfect person to actually help us to learn how to build a personal learning network. And you can register online on the AITD website for that. A big part of AITD's continuing professional development plan is Training and Development magazine. And Joe, our editor, has been live tweeting away in the background during our webinar. And the webinar today actually fitted in with the current issue on career development. And so if you're not an AITD member or you've lost your copy and you'd like a copy of the latest magazine, then just send us your name and address to the email address that's on your screen, and we'll send one out to you. Good to see the chat room still going in there. Keep going. If you've got a question for Lucy, then jump in there. AITD National Conference is coming up in June, and the early bird pricing runs till the end of March. We've got a fabulous lineup of speakers, pre-conference workshops, amazing exhibition area. Way too good actually to go into detail here, but jump onto the AITD website and check it out and get in whilst that early bird pricing is still running. A final shout out again for Redback. I do it twice in each of our webinars because they do just make them work for us. Webinars, webcasts, we've done live recordings in their studios, whatever we need, they make it work. And if you want to learn some more, AITD has all sorts of opportunities in our courses, in our local events. There's ones coming up in March in Sydney and in Perth. There's some new online courses we have about virtual classrooms, about using Google tools in learning and development, about curation. All of those ones, all of those little icons kind of represent the different courses that we have: social and collaborative learning, instructional design, presentation skills, facilitation skills, project management. All of those things are on the AITD website. So just head to the Learn tab on the AITD website to check all of that out. So finally, a huge thanks to Lucy for joining us today. We'll close the chat room in a few minutes, and the recording will be available on the AITD website by the end of the week. I wish you all a lovely lunch break and a fabulous afternoon. And there's an exit survey over there on the right. If you could do that before you go, give us a bit of feedback about our webinars. And hopefully we'll see you online in a couple of weeks with Helen Blunden and how to build a personal learning network. That's all from me. Have a good afternoon.